with us, we have a very well respected leader amongst us. I know he's going to introduce himself, but I can say 1, 2, 3 things about him. So he's a current he currently works in AWS in South Africa, and he was an alumnus of Dedan Kimathi. During his time, he founded this club that we have currently, CSOK, and he also assisted in founding DHub. DHub is an innovation hub at Dedan Kimathi in Nyeri. So he has contributed a lot towards the growth of the school in tech. Yes, so as he is about to take us through the topic, building your professional presence, which involves crafting a strong brand portfolio and interview skills, he'll introduce himself to us and tell us more about himself. Anthony Orenge, you can speak to us.
Cool. Thanks, Lilian, for the flattering remarks. Hi, everyone. I'm Anthony, and as Lilian mentioned, gave a highlight of my profile. So to begin with, I'm an alumni of Kimathi University. I think I joined when it was called Kimathi University College of Technology in 2011, and I completed my my undergrad in 2014 and graduated in 2015. Yeah. Brief history. After I completed my undergrad, I did work in Nairobi. First of all, I started my work at DHub. So my first job was to set up the DHub, or the incubation space, basically from ground up to setting the SOP, standard operating procedure for running that space. And then I worked there for 3 to 4 months. Then I moved to Nairobi for a startup company. And then after 2 years, I got a scholarship to a small country up north in Europe. That's Estonia. Estonia is well known for its innovative products, things like Skype, things like Bolt, Pipedrive, TransferWise. So they're all from Estonia. So I got a chance there to do my master's in software engineering, and then I ran my own company in Estonia for a few months, then moved back to Kenya, joined another startup, then after 2 years, then moved down to Cape Town, South Africa. Yeah, so that's a brief history of myself. And I'm sharing this as a motivation because today we are talking about how to build your professional profile. So thanks to those who did send their questions beforehand, because it allows me to guide this discussion to be more focused on what you guys are interested in. Cool. So I'll start with, if you're starting out, what's the first thing that you do? How do you prepare yourself for the industry? One thing I'll say is that, one thing I'll say is that you need to be able to be promising. By promising is you're showing the right behaviors, and the right behaviors in this case will be things like you're quick to learn, things like you're a good problem solver. So I think Kipro Teach, you can mute your mic. Okay, cool. So I think that the main two things when you're starting out, is you need to show the right behavior. So the basic behaviors is that you're willing to learn, you're quick to learn, and the other behavior is you can be able to solve problems. So you have a good problem solving ability. So I'd focus on those two to paint a journey from what can get you from the state you're currently in. I'm assuming most of you are still in, you're doing your studies, you're still in your undergrad, or you've just completed. So I'm painting a picture of like the steps or the process you can follow to set you up for success. It might be different, different factors, but I'll just try to paint kind of a standard picture of how it will look like. So those two behaviors. So how do you use those two behaviors like to allow you to prepare for the job market? So one that will be for your CV or your resume. What do you need in your CV? So you'll need the basic details like about you and your education and the like. But the key thing is the projects that you worked on. And this touches on the two things, like your ability to be able to learn and be curious. So on these projects, one thing they'll be interested in things like pet projects. And your pet projects should be things that show curiosity. So I teach like every day there's something new that comes out, and we've known that for the years there's always this trendy or catchy technology or the technology that people in the industry are interested in. A few years ago, it was blockchain, and then things have changed. Now people are more interested in artificial intelligence, AI. So when you work on your pet projects, you ideally want to be around that space. You know, you want to have that cool project, and the purpose of that project is definitely it shouldn't work. If it works, awesome, but nobody expects it to work. But what the market expects from you is that that particular project shows that you're curious. You're curious about learning new stuff. So your pet projects, picking the right technologies to work on, is key. You don't want to have a pet project and basically it's just some CRUD application, you know, create, read, update, and delete. That doesn't show curiosity. You need to think about like something more complex, something more new, more fancy. So that's about your pet projects. And then the second thing about what you need to add to your CV when you're starting out are things that, apart from your pet projects, are things that you do. I don't want to use the word free, but things that you contribute to the community. So this could be your contribution to some open source projects. It could be your contribution to your community, let's say your former school or your church or your local government. What are the things you've done for your community? So those are key. So they show that you can be able to solve problems in the community. So that's the other thing you want to include in your CV. And I think to summarize those two, some of the key things that can like pop out your CV, you know, provide the unique value proposition for your CV when you present it out. Yeah. So your pet, just summarize your pet project and your contribution to the community. Now, the other thing for your CV, ideally what you want is you also want to brand yourself professionally. So as a developer, I think one thing that the industry expects most, like from most developers, is that at least you have a GitHub account. It could be a GitLab or whatever, but you have some repository somewhere whereby you push your code and then it shows that there's some activity. Like basically you're trying to portray an image that you're a developer or you're always like contributing something. And Another thing is that I don't want to kind of like narrow down these opportunities only to developers. Uh, there are multiple roles out there that are not only limited to being a developer. So there are roles like uh, a data analyst. So depending on what you're interested in, do you have some notebook? These Jupyter notebooks. Do you have some notebook that you've done your models? You've used machine learning pandas and the like that you can use as a pet project. So it doesn't have to be that you've committed some Java or some Python code or a repo. It could be just some analysis, or it could be some models you've uploaded to some open source machine learning community. Yeah. So to that point, I think once you have that, start building up on your CV. Now, so in terms of like formatting your CV or resume, we have so many online tools that can allow you to format your CV for free. You only just need to fill in the details and it prints out a well-formatted CV. If you're lazy and you don't want to do that, we do have like LinkedIn. If you fill in your details on LinkedIn, there's an option to download them as a CV. And then you have a well-formatted CV. It's so disappointing when you find a candidate submitted a CV and it has typos, it's not well structured, or it's too verbose. It's a lot of details that you don't need, and it's missing the keywords. So try optimize on using like these online tools which are for free. LinkedIn is one which you can just, if you fill in your details there, it will print for you your CV. So try maximize on those tools. Another thing is that on your CV, you ideally want to make sure you have the right keywords. So depending on your interest. So let's say, let me start by a developer, because I'm a developer. So I'm more familiar with that space. So you want keywords to be in your CV, things like programming languages. You mentioned those languages, Java, Python, mention some mention things like Scrum, things like Agile, because what happens is most companies, they do have systems that filter out your CVs. And what those systems do, they just go and look at the keywords. So you don't want to be eliminated because you didn't include a keyword in your CV. So make sure you have those keywords, especially on your pet projects that you've included in your CV, you mention those keywords. If you did a previous intern and you worked on a project or contributed to a project, make sure you include those keywords. So that will make your CV be more accessible by these triaging or filtering systems. So I'm looking at the So I'm looking at the questions. So I see Nicole Onyego had a question on identify your unique value proposition to stand out in your field. So I think I've mentioned what can allow you to stand out. So as we said, have something on your CV, let it be like something trendy, something that the industry is interested in. And even better, if you can be able to have your projects deployed somewhere, do that so that you can use it as a demo, especially when you're starting out. If you have a demo, it's showing like these two right behaviors that I talked about. It's showing that you can be able to learn and be curious about a topic or a problem or something. And then by you working on that project and deploying it somewhere, so that it's accessible, it shows that you can actually solve a problem. So those are the two key things. The other thing that I forgot to mention is that you also need to be able to show that you're a team player. Nowadays, you see that everything has moved online. People are not going to the offices as in the past, people working from home. I know many people back home in Kenya who work for companies abroad. So it means then you need to be a good team player, and also you need to be able to learn how to work work online, basically. Work with people you never met. So building those relationships. So now, how does that reflect on your CV? So the third thing is like, are you part of these communities? So I know we have like Microsoft communities in the university. We have like Google communities. Yeah, we have the CSOK club. Be part of these communities. It shows that you can work with people, you can work with a team. And by you even making an effort of joining this session, it shows that you can be able to contribute and work with the other people. So these are the things you can include in your CV. You can include in your CV that I participated in these hackathons. I participated in these particular events, and I learned this and this. Because what that shows is that you're a team player. You can work with people. And I worked on it could even be a school project. I worked on a school project in my classrooms, and we managed to build product X, which solved problem Y, and which had this impact. So those are the things you can be able to include in your CV. So Doreen Mutoni had a question: how to craft a compelling CV. So I think with the things that I've mentioned, if you have them in your CV, your CV is formatted well. You've used some online tool to format your CV. There are no typos. It's well structured, and it doesn't have remove all the jargon. I think nowadays most people prefer a one pager. If you can have your CV in a one page, if not, max 2 pages, and highlight the key things. And then, as I say, the keywords is what like gets your CV picked up by these systems. And then the content of your CV, the things we've talked about, your pet projects. We've talked about your contribution to the community. And then the third thing, your involvement in the community. Those are the things you want to have in your CV. Now, Stephen Mwangi has a question. Paint a picture of how to ask for the application status without sounding impatient, or rather, you even do so. Stephen, I think this is one thing most people will find it hard to like grapple with. When you come out of school, or for those who are out already, one thing you'll notice is that you don't get your first job from your first application, like your first CV you submit. You'll have to spread your net. You'll have to send like 50 CV or apply to 50 opportunities, and probably you'll get around like 10% is what you'll get a chance to go and interview. So that's something you need to be prepared with, and don't ever be afraid of being rejected, especially when you apply to this many jobs. What you should take is that when you apply for a job and they have an opportunity of like sharing feedback with you, they tell you like, we couldn't pick you at this time, that's when now you can follow up. If they allow, you can follow up with the question and ask them, uh, what were you missing? What was the gap? So that you can improve on those gaps and improve your CV, so that on the next application you submit, it's better. It's an improved. You've actually improved your CV. Yeah. But on the question of like, you've submitted your CV and you keep on asking them, hey, what's the status? I don't think that's the right behavior. I think you should prepare your CV well, submit it to multiple companies that you're interested in, and then for those that come back, either they accept you so that you can go into the interview round, or they reject. For those that reject, and they give you an opportunity to like communicate, ask them for feedback, ask them like, why did you reject my application? What was missing in my CV? So that you can know either you applied in the wrong place that doesn't fit your skills, or there are some missing gaps that you need to cover. So there's one more question. I'd like to know how to fill a CV before graduation. As I said, so many tools online for creating your CV. One-page CVs. They even design nowadays. I do see new applicants that have even well-designed CVs. Like those online tools just submit you information. They even format your CV very nicely. So I take advantage of those online tools and think about what's going to be in your CV and the things that you're doing currently in the university. As I say, the three things like your own pet projects that you're working on, or your previous internship, your contribution to the community, and also your involvement. Have those things in your CV, and then those you can prepare before your graduation. Then I think the last question here is, how do you negotiate the remuneration if offered an open check? Okay, I'll not go straight to the to the remuneration part. So now let's first of all take a step back. So you have your CV. I think the next step will be, once I have my CV, I submit my CV to multiple companies. And another key thing that you need to try is that try submitting your CV to startups, because startups they need of like of engineers. You know, they need these skills. They have a low bar in terms of like hiring. They have like a short interview rounds, so it's easier for you to get in. So I would say look out for startups. And then second in your list, look out for mid-sized companies, and then like third in your list, look for these big tech companies. If you have a program in your school that allows you like to interview to big, mid-sized or big companies, the better. But if not, just follow that pattern. Go with the startups. Easier to get you in, easier for you to start learning, start building your skills, and then once you grow, you can then target the mid-size and the big companies. So now let's say you've submitted your CV to all these companies. I think the follow-up thing will be, you've now received your offer. And I think for most companies, the first thing that they do, they give you a problem or a challenge. So it could be on a lead code, it could be on, they could send you a challenge via email. So now this is where you need to learn one thing, that your interview skills is so much different from the things that you'll be doing on your day-to-day job, are completely different. If you're an interview, if you're going for an interview, you require a different set of skills from the ones that you'll be required to have when you get that job offer. So the interview skills here, how do you build on your interview skills? Now, this is where most people get it wrong. You'll have to spend at least 6 months building on your interview skills. And what are the interview skills? These are things like being able to communicate effectively. The other thing will be if you're a dev and you're going to do these problems like lead code and some coding problems or challenges, you have to brush up on your computer science fundamentals. You have to brush up on your data structures and algorithms. You have to brush up on design, so system design, assuming you're going for a higher role or position. So these are the things which you need to work on. Now, how do you brush up on your communication? I think you can do this. You can practice this a lot. You can watch videos on YouTube. You can practice with your friend. You can have like mock interviews with your friend, and then this will allow you to know what to say, what not to say, being able to phrase your responses in a more structured manner so that your interviewer can collect the data points that they need to build a case for you either to be hired or not hired. So that's where you need to practice a lot. Now, let's say you're good at your communication. What's the next thing? So the technical stuff. So your computer science fundamentals, just go brush up on, like, pick a programming language of your choice. And I think with most industry, people are not so much obsessed with your knowledge of a particular language unless that job specifically requires that language. I think for most opportunities, they don't require your knowledge of a specific language because you can always learn that language. What they need is do you have the right fundamentals? So your computer science fundamentals, understanding like what's a function, what's a class, all the concepts of object-oriented programming, functional programming, all the stuff, dynamic programming. And then you follow up with your data structures and algorithms. So things around the concepts of arrays, trees, stacks, queues, all of that. And also having the ability to determine the space and time complexity. So those are some of the skills you need to have to pass your technical challenges in an interview. Now, and if you're going for a higher role, you also need to brush up on your system design, basically having a good understanding of how systems work, good architectures for a system. If you're told to design, maybe someone mentioned Twitter or X, if you're told to do a high-level diagram for architecture, how X works, you can quickly create a simplified model of how X, or let's say these teams, would work. So those are things you can brush up. YouTube has a lot of resources on this. I know lots of like Indians, they're good at creating this content, so you can watch their stuff. Yeah, you can learn a lot from them. Cool. So you've brushed up on your interview skills. You're now at the interview stage. You've communicated effectively. You've solved the technical challenges presented to you. So I think in most companies, you'll have a technical challenge the day that you take home or you do it on lead code. For the lead code one, you need to practice on lead code. There's no other way you can learn about that. As I said, it's a skill by itself. So you'll have to go on LeetCode, try out like 100 problems, try different, and then you'll get a pattern of how those problems look like. So that's the first hurdle. You get past that, now you're either you'll be called on site, whereby you'll go some couple of interview rounds, and this is where your interview skills and your being able to communicate effectively, your problem solving skills, being able to solve those technical challenges will come now into effect. So assume you've done very well. Now you're on the last stage. You've gotten your offer. They've told you you've successfully gone through the interview round, and this is your offer. Now, I think now this goes to the question, the last question that I got here, which was, how do you negotiate the remuneration if offered an open check? So rarely you'll be offered an open check, rarely. If you're offered an open check, you're a lucky guy. You're a lucky person. So in most cases, you'll be given an offer. What I always advise or recommend to people interact with is that whenever you're given an offer, there's no harm in always asking for a counter offer, and always try to make yourself like aware of like the market price for the role you're going into. Nowadays, there are so many tools online. You can just Google what's the salary for a software developer in Nairobi, or whatever you're interested in. Then you can get like the market price. So you don't want to be too far off, either on the negative or the positive side. So once you know like this is the market range, you can always know that if I'm given an offer, you can try to do a counter offer, just maybe not far off from that market range, something that your employer to be, they won't find it hard to meet. Because remember, by the time they've got you to that stage, they've already invested a lot of money. You know, they paid recruiters, they paid someone to post that job, they paid some recruiters to source you, then they use their own internal staff to take you through the interview rounds. So the company has already invested a lot just to get you to that point. So they will not let you go that easily. So that's why I always say, when you've reached that point, you've gotten your offer, there's no harm in providing a counter offer. You'll be surprised. Cool. I think I've covered most of the questions. Okay. For the next 20 minutes, I'd like to have an open Q&A. So if you have questions, I think this will be the right time. Looking at the chat, and there's that Ian. Yeah, saying Gaurav sent us some of the best system design courses on YouTube. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, cool. Okay, I think Lilian, you can open the floor for Q&A. Yeah, and then we can have a more engaging discussion.
Okay, so we have some questions in the Q&A section. Someone asks, they have an AWS Solutions Architect certificate. Where can they practice the skills hands-on so that they can be able to share their progress on LinkedIn?
That's a good question. Now, you see, these certification certificates, they are good. But nowadays, companies are not interested in the certificates. Those certificates are only used to filter. They're only used to basically, reduce the number of applicants. So it's easier for them to manage. The key thing that companies are interested in is your skills. So then this goes to your question of, I have the certificate, but then how do I build the skills so that if I go to an interview and I'm told to configure an IAM role and attach a policy, I can actually do that. Because nobody will ask you to define an IAM role or a policy. They'll tell you, go and configure it in AWS. So, and maybe using CDK. So how do you do that? So how do you build that skill? Now, this is where the pet projects come in. As I said, pet projects are key. Your pet projects or your contribution. It will either be a free or paid contribution, but you working on something, working on a project on the side allows you to build that skill. AWS does offer a free package for 1 year. You can use their service for 1 year. And if you're a student, you even get, I think, even a better package. You can use it for longer. If you're out there, you have a free package. So ideally, you could either go to your community. It could be your friend has a business and tell them, hey, I can create for you a simple website and you can either pay me this or I'll do it for free for you. And then you could use now whatever you learned in your AWS certification. You can go and deploy that website using AWS resources for free because they don't charge anything for the first year. I hope that answers, Van, I hope that answers your question. Oh, sorry, I do see you didn't mention AWS Solutions Architect. So being able to demonstrate your ability to become a solutions architect, that comes with practice. And the only way you can be able to practice, either it will be through your pet projects or it will be through you contributing to other people's projects. And then the thing with becoming a good solutions architect, it also comes with experience. Being able to work with people or you yourself been developing those systems so that you can identify the sharp edges, you can identify where the bottlenecks are. Yeah, and some of it comes through experience. You can't learn it in books. Okay. Okay, I'll go to the second question, I think from Eleonora Matalanga. For having projects, do projects work on during hackathons and competitors count? Yes, they do. Yes, they do. When you go to a hackathon or you go to some competition or even your school projects, be keen on those projects because if you worked on those projects as an individual and contributed something, it's something that you learned, it's a skill that you learned by you contributing to that project. So you can always use that in your CV. And as I said, like personal projects are even the best. That's what I'm calling the pet projects. Out here in the industry, nowadays most companies they're not interested in your certificates, in your undergrad certificate, in your master's certificate or PhD. They're interested in skills. That's why they take you through interview rounds whereby you have to solve a problem either online or on-site in person. Cool. Any other Q&A question?
Okay, I can see Mark Gatere has submitted a question saying, how do you start the discussion on negotiating for the salary? Like an example of how you can counter the offer.
Good. So as I said, remember one thing. By the time a company gives you an offer, you are the one who has an upper hand. Because to that point, the company has already invested a lot to get you there. People don't know or don't have an idea how much companies spend to get someone into the company. If you run your own company, you'll know it's a lot because you'll have to pay for that job to be advertised. You'll have to pay for some recruiters. Then you also have to pay for some interviewers. So it's quite an expensive process to bring you on board. Now, by the time you reach that point, you as the interviewee, you've now received an offer, then you have an upper hand. And as I said, how do you, so now I think to Simon's question, no, I think you said, market, yes. So to that point, the way you can counter offer, as I said, is first of all, make yourself knowledgeable about the market rates. Know for your position, this is the range. And whatever offer you've been given, if it's within that range, you could always ask for more. Yeah. And there's no harm. You'll be surprised. Try that. I had my friend, he got a job offer from a big company, and he was scared because he thought if I go and ask them, they might say no, and I'll lose this offer. And the way I've worked so hard to reach this point, especially for these big companies, they take you through a 6-month interview process. It's quite tedious, quite long. So I told him, like, you don't need to be scared. The company has already invested a lot to get you to that point. All you need to do is just understand the market prices, which you can find online. And then whatever offer you've been given, just do a markup to a 10%, 15%, 20% markup on what. And they'll be like, okay, that we can give you. And if they say no, what's the harm? You don't lose, you still have your offer. But remember, you have to do it respectfully because you don't want to burn bridges and you're just starting out. So try to be reasonable, try to ask within the market range. Yeah, and I think that will work for you. There's another question on the chat from Simon Juma. How did you deal with imposter syndrome while you were learning software engineering? So I know, like, imposter syndrome nowadays is something that is trending, and it's a reality, it's a fact. You get to your first job, you find smart people around you, and you're scared. The only way to deal with this is, as I said, is have it in yourself that you're in this process to learn and to grow. So don't be afraid of making mistakes. Don't be afraid of asking for help. So if you're working on a problem, you don't know a solution, you can always reach out and ask for help. With that, it will reduce. First of all, you will learn about the problem that you're trying to solve. You learn something out of it by asking. And then it gives you the opportunity to know that you're not afraid of failing. You're not afraid of being in the wrong. You're somebody who's willing to learn. So always be open to that. Like, I work with really smart people, and one key thing you'll find with smart people is that they are willing to admit they are wrong. And if they don't know something, they say, I don't know. And they always ask, like, what is the correct answer? So that's a smart person. The not so smart person, they'll be like, they know, but they don't know. So always try to be smart by, if you don't know something, say, I don't know. And even this one it's a skill also when you're doing your interviews. when you're doing interviews and the interviewer asks you a question that you don't have an answer, just be honest. Tell them, I don't know, but given an opportunity, I'll go and research and learn about this and give you an answer. That's a better response than saying or trying to give an answer which is wrong. Then the interview will have to correct you, and then yeah, it won't work. It won't work out for you. Okay. Any other question?
Yes, we have one question from Muhindi Asena. He asks, what are the different paths for career development within an organization, like moving from intern to full-time or web developer to back-end developer?
Now, for most startup companies, you'll find that you'll be wearing many hats. So you go to a startup company, you'll start out as a developer, and you might find yourself being a manager or a project team lead, or who knows, like you find yourself in a completely different role. So that's the beauty of startups, because you wear like many hats. But when you go to these big companies and you're building out your career, you'll notice that nowadays, I think for most companies, they've come to realize that not everybody is cut out to be a manager. There's some of you who are like technically gifted and they don't want to be managing people. And there's some of you who are good at people management, but they're not that good technically. So if you're planning your career on the technical line, nowadays we do have like roles for that. So you either go from being a junior software engineer to a software engineer to a senior software engineer to a principal to a senior principal to a distinguished and then to a star. And then there are few star engineers around the world. And star engineers, I think an example would be someone like Linus Torvalds, the guy who created Linux, that's powering most systems around the world. He created Linux and Git. So that's why he's at a different level. That's the career path for those who are technically gifted. If you choose the alternative, people management, you could still start as a junior software engineer. You could then switch to become a manager, managing a smaller team. You could go to becoming a senior manager, and then all your way to management roles where there's big bucks, either being a VP of a company or a CTO, yeah, all the way to being a CEO. So nowadays, like for both career paths, they do pay well for both, and yeah, it provides an option. Now, on the question of like, do I start as a front end? Do I start as a back end? What I would say is that if you're interested in the software development journey, I'll say as a start, just do everything. Start as a full stack, because at that point you don't know much about like what you're interested in. For a few months, be a full stack. Play with some technologies on the front end, play with some technologies on the back end. Then that will allow you to know like where your interest lies. Are you more interested in on the front end stuff or on the back end stuff, or even on the DevOps stuff? So once you know where you're interested in, then you can start specializing. And nowadays, like both roles, they do pay well. Front-end engineers and as much as the back-end engineers. So don't be too tied on like, I want to become a back-end so I can get more bucks. I think nowadays, in most companies, you find not much of a big difference. Okay. Any other question?
Okay, we can take the last two questions. Then we have Doreen, who is asking about cybersecurity, how she can succeed in the career since she is navigating from law. So we'll have a session on cybersecurity, so you can also be stoked on that. We can take the question from Teresa. She asks, when it comes to audience management, how can I effectively engage with my target audience through my brand, and what strategies can I use to ensure a loyal following to the target audience? How can she get a loyal following to the target audience she has?
That's a good question. I think that's more centered towards people who are interested in becoming like entrepreneurs. Um, and I think those people are important because they create opportunities for those who are keen on improving on their CVs and being employed. So it's a fine balance, which is good. Now, to that question, how do you maintain your audience? I think the key thing there is consistency. You have to be consistent. You can think about the content creators that you follow online. Why do you keep watching them or following their content? I believe it's because they are consistent. So that's one thing. The other thing is the quality of your content. Um, if you're sharing if you're upskilling people, you have to make sure your content is top notch and there's some consistency so people can rely on your content. And then once you get your audience, you can then monetize that audience. You can have a Patreon page where people want now maybe they want more of your content in a more tailored way. They can pay for that. Yeah. But key thing there is consistency. Okay, maybe the last question.
Okay, the last question is from Simon Juma. He asks, how can they keep up with the constant shifts and emergence of new technologies while learning?
Now, as I said, like when I started this discussion, I said there are two fundamentals that you should always make sure you're good at. One is being able to learn and be curious, and two is becoming a good problem solver. Those are like the fundamentals. Then you can add anything you think about on top. I think those are the right behaviors. Now, how do you keep you keep abreast with the ever-changing technology landscape? Now, the thing here is that you don't need to keep on chasing the trends. Just stick in a technology you're good at, and then make sure you're up to date with that technology. And then for any new trend, unless you're interested in, then you can invest in that trend. So let me pick an example. So let's say in the front-end space, there are always new frameworks coming out. And I'll suggest just go to let's say the Stack Overflow survey, check what's the most popular or common framework. It's React, then stick to React. And then if you're doing some pet projects here and there, you can then try the fancy ones, but I'll say be good, have your foundation in the mostly used technology. That's the one which will pay for your gas, pay for your food. That one. Okay, cool. Simon Juma, I hope I have answered your question. Okay, thanks everyone. Unless there's any other question, or I'll hand it over to you, Lilian.
Okay, so as we are heading towards the ending time 9, so I thank you all for joining. Thanks, Anthony Orenge, for the informative session. It has been really great. So as I've sent a link to join the CSOK community, you can join them using the links that I've sent in the chat. Yes, we will be having more of these sessions per week. Okay, we'll keep you posted in the community channels. Yes, we will have the cybersecurity sessions. Every session will keep you posted on it. Thanks so much for joining, guys. Also, okay, I can't see the link. If you can't see the link, can you confirm with a thumbs up? If you can't see the link. Okay. So, okay, I'll reach out to Doreen. So, on the chat, we also have a pinned message. It's the hashtag for the session, the professional stake. So this will be a series from CSOK where we'll be having professionals joining us, teaching us about the career skills we should have, and also the soft skills that we should have for the business. So be active on the group and check out the sessions. You can use the hashtag there in X to share with others what you've been learning. Thank you so much for joining. You can leave at your own avail. The links are reposted again in the chat.
Okay. Thank you for hosting me. And I'd like to wish everyone a good night and a good evening.